Chapter 9 of Hunting for Hidden Gold. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Escape. Frank Hardy wasted not a second. Before the man with the automatic pistol could realize what he was doing, he had flung up his hands sharply, at the same time releasing his grip on the wrench. It spun straight and true, knocking the automatic out of the fellow's grasp, and it clattered to the floor of the car. When Joe saw that their antagonist was unarmed, he rose halfway up in the seat and launched himself upon the driver. Frank, in the meantime, reached for the pistol. He was unable to find it, but his fingers closed over the wrench again. There was a yell of surprise and rage from the three men in the road, and they rushed toward the car. One of them came plunging along the side and attempted to grapple with Frank, but a sideways swing of the wrench caught him on the right of the head, and he staggered back with a yelp of pain. Joe was still struggling with the driver of the car. The latter was at a disadvantage in that he had been caught unawares. The loss of his automatic had flustered him, and Joe's sudden onslaught had taken him completely by surprise. Penned in by the wheel, he was unable to use his superior weight to advantage, and Joe seemed all over him, pounding him unmercifully. One of the other toughs leaned over the side and seized Joe by the back of the coat. The man who had been hit with the wrench was dancing about in pain and keeping at a respectful distance. The other fellow was attempting to close in on Frank. He sprang forward, just dodged a sweeping blow of the wrench, and then wrestled with the boy. They swayed to and fro. The tough was of husky build, and his gorilla-like arms were possessed of great strength. The door of the car flew open, and the pair staggered from the running board into the roadway. They rolled about, fighting and struggling, while the man who had been hit with the wrench took occasion to deliver a vicious kick at Frank. A sudden twist, however, brought the other man into range at the moment, and he received the kick that was intended for the boy. But the Hardys were outnumbered. Joe was quickly overcome, and the other pair would soon have beaten Frank into submission but for a surprising interruption. Down the roadway came a clattering and roaring, and around the other car came plunging an ancient and decrepit Ford with an enormous Negro at the wheel. Beside him sat another colored man, and the pair gazed at the struggle before them, with mouths agape and eyes starting. Then the Negro driving the car brought it to a stop and clambered down, picking up the car crank as he went. "Use the speeders what run over my chickens," he roared, bearing down on the two toughs who were grappling with Frank. He dealt one of them a hearty rap on the back of the head with the crank, and the fellow bolted forthwith. Reinforcements had arrived, and he judged that the fight would soon be over. He raced for the car parked across the road and scrambled into the front seat. The two colored men rushed into the battle with enthusiasm. The three toughs in the other car had, it appeared, deliberately driven their automobile into a flock of chickens at the side of the road near the Negro's farm farther down the road. Revenge, therefore, was sweet. In a very short time the fight was at an end. The toughs broke and fled, regaining their car, and were soon careening down the road. As for the young man who had brought the Hardy boys into this trap, he managed to get his own car started, shook off his attackers, and the automobile plunged forward. "Let them go," said Frank, picking himself up out of the ditch. "If they runs over any more of my chickens, I'll follow them from here till doomsday," declared the big Negro. "You certainly showed up in the nick of time," said Joe, brushing off his coat. "They had us beaten 2-1. "White trash," declared the other colored man. "I knows 'em. They just pool-room toughs." "How come they lays for y'all way out here?" asked the big man curiously. "The chap driving the touring car was going to drive us out to a town called Greendale so we could get a train back to Chicago," Frank explained, and telling the man where they got into the automobile. "He turned down this road, and then we met the other three waiting for us. They all jumped us at once." "There ain't no trains pass through Greendale," declared their rescuer. "If you'll wait there for a train for Chicago, you'll wait years and years, and even then you won't get no train." "We'll have to go back to that town then," said Joe. "That's where we gwine. Get in dis here flivver, and we'll drive you back to the railway." Glad to have gotten out of the scrape thus easily, the Hardy Boys clambered into the rickety Ford, and the two colored men resumed their seats in front. "Soon's I seen dat car cross de road, I knowed dat was de same car dat run down my chickens," declared the driver. "And when I seen dem fighting with yo' boys, I knowed dey wasn't up to no good, and I knowed what side I was gwine to take, and I took it." "Yes, sir, we sure put the run on dem," chuckled his companion. "A mighty good thing for us that you showed up when you did," Frank declared. "That gang were trying to kidnap us." "How come?" "They've been trying to keep us from catching a train to the west, and they mighty nearly got away with it that time." "Well, dey don't ham yo' no more, not so long as yo' in dis automobile," the big Negro assured them. And as the car bounded along onto the main highway, the Hardy Boys discussed the trap into which they had been so cleverly led. "It'll teach us to beware of strangers from now on," Frank said. "Evidently, one lesson isn't enough. If a stranger says so much as hello to me after this, I'll yell for the police." "Perhaps not that bad," and Frank grinned. "But we know now that there is a plot on foot to keep us from reaching the West, and we'll have to be on our guard. I'm more anxious than ever to get to the West now. It looks as if we're heading into some real excitement. We've had more than we bargained for already." In a short time, the automobile came within sight of the town the boys had left but a little while before, and after warmly thanking their two rescuers and slipping a $5 bill into the hands of the big driver, who beamed with gratification and delight, the Hardy Boys settled down to wait for the night train back to Chicago. They were bothered by no more encounters with strangers, and after an almost interminable wait, the train arrived. "One day lost on our journey," remarked Frank, as the train pulled away from the station and headed northward. "It could have been worse. If those fellows had captured us, we'd have likely been held prisoners in some out-of-the-way place for ever so long." "That's true, too. Well, we won't take any more chances. When we get to Chicago, we'd better change our names and our appearance, too, if we can manage it. If these chaps are on the lookout for us, they won't stop now that we've escaped from them twice. We can't be too careful." Joe agreed that his brother's idea was a good one, and for the rest of the tedious journey back to Chicago, they whiled away the time by discussing ways and means whereby they might journey to the West without being identified readily as the Hardy Boys by the mysterious enemies who seemed determined to prevent them from joining their father. End of chapter 9.